I want to thank everyone in the crowd for joining in today. As you may know already, I'm Hunter, the community manager over here at Arbitrum slash Off-Chain Labs. I'm joined today by Mark, CMO of SynFutures. Mark, everything's going well, I assume?
Yeah, it's going great. Holiday weekend, and I'm excited to be here with the Arbitrum community.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, yes. And for those who aren't too familiar, SynFutures is a decentralized derivatives protocol on Arbitrum. We're just going to, run through a couple of questions, how it works, what it is, how it kind of fits into the Arbitrum ecosystem, and of course, stuff more about the roadmap and whatnot. But before we even jump into that stuff, if you do have any questions for the SynFutures team, feel free to leave them in the AMA chat. We'll make sure to get to some of them closer to the end of the call. So, Mark, if you don't mind, can you give us like an overview of what SynFutures is and maybe kind of what brought you to being the CMO over there?
Yeah, sure. So maybe it'll be helpful if I give a little bit of background on myself. So, I've been in the tech space for many years now. And I think around 2017, 2018, I started getting exposure to like the crypto and blockchain sector just as a form of emerging technology. I've worked with a lot of exciting projects since then, everything from FTX and Solana to like some of the centralized exchanges like Huobi, but a lot of like DeFi protocols, gaming apps, and NFT platforms along the way. I came across SynFutures about a year ago now, and I met the team. They have really solid experience, not only within the blockchain and crypto space, but also within TradFi. So working as, the core team worked as, traders, they worked at major investment banks. And so I saw this huge opportunity within the DeFi space to kind of revolutionize the way derivatives are traded in like a truly permissionless manner. And so I made the choice to kind of join them full time as like a partner and CMO. And, it's been a great experience so far. I've personally been through multiple market cycles. So, I know right now it's like a bearish market, but I'm super excited about what we're doing here because I think some of the best projects come out of this type of market. Now, let me give you guys a quick overview of what SynFutures is. So we're a decentralized derivatives exchange. So you can think of it like, Uniswap, SushiSwap for derivatives. Right. One other thing that makes us different is we kind of support all types of assets, not just like the crypto majors like BTC, ETH, Matic, etc. We really want to democratize access to, crypto derivatives. Well, not only crypto, we also support, anything with a price feed. So you'll be able to trade futures on indices, equities, gold if you'd like, and even Bitcoin mining hash rates. I think at the end of the day, though, like if you look at it from a very high level, we are a derivatives exchange. We're our counterparts in the centralized space would be like an FTX as an example.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, thank you for that overview. I think what would also maybe help too is kind of, maybe going a little deeper into what differentiates SynFutures from other derivative protocols. I know you mentioned that you guys have pretty much, options for all those different types of assets, including indices and whatnot. But yeah, maybe if you can kind of, go in there a little more detail or anything else that makes it
Yeah.
a
So
differentiator. Yeah.
I think, when we look at the competitive landscape, we look at it in two buckets, right? So we compete with like the centralized exchanges of the world, like I just mentioned FTX on the derivative side. Being decentralized affords, many benefits for users. First, it's, completely permissionless, completely on chain. It also means that it's, we're non-custodial. Users keep control over their assets and so forth. But I think more importantly, if you look at the other competitive set, which is other decentralized derivatives exchanges like, DYDX, Perpetual, Synthetics, etc., one of the biggest differentiating factors for us is that we are truly permissionless in, any way you can imagine. This means we allow anyone to kind of come onto the platform, connect their wallet, and start trading. But more importantly, it determines the number of like the types of assets and pairs we allow on our platform. Most decentralized derivatives exchanges still operate in a somewhat centralized fashion, meaning, they may offer anywhere from 15 to 30 different trading pairs, I think, which is great because a lot of the trading volume gravitates toward these crypto majors. But a lot of people, as they get deeper and deeper into the crypto space and deeper into the derivatives trading, they start looking at some of the longer tail assets. So the challenge, though, with our competitors is for them to list new assets. It's a pretty lengthy process. So it's either a decision they make internally to list new assets over time, or community members could potentially put out a DAO proposal to get like their favorite asset listed. For us, we're completely permissionless in the sense that anyone can come to our platform if they don't see an asset that they want to trade, they can go ahead and list it themselves. Similar to like Uniswap V3 on the spot side, right? So if there's a token there that you want to list or that you want to start trading, someone can come and provide the liquidity for it and get that pair listed with no permission, no outside intervention. On our platform, we allow people to do this within 30 seconds, right? So the idea here is we support a much bigger pool of assets on our platform. The analogy that we like to use is we're trying to create like the Amazon of derivatives, which means anyone can come here, list assets, create a market in a truly permissionless way, which I think is one of our strongest unique differentiators. That aside, I mentioned earlier that our team has pretty solid experience in both TradFi and blockchain. And this kind of carries over into our product as a competitive advantage because they're extremely well versed in risk control, security, risk management, et cetera. So I think even in volatile markets, we're able to protect our LPs, the liquidity providers, from big kind of deviations in price. And so, this isn't something that the average user maybe thinks about, but I think given what we've seen in the market with a lot of projects taking big hits because of this extreme volatility, the security and the risk control factor comes into play, and I think we're seeing it play out right now, where compared to our competitors, we're seeing much more stability across like our trading activity.
I would love to like actually pick your brain a little bit more, especially on the whole idea that users are able to kind of come in and take whatever asset they want. And using Arbitrum as an example, let's say they want to take the token on here and go ahead and start their own type of I guess you could say like a product essentially on SynFutures. Is that something that while it is permissionless, while anyone can do it, is it something you've seen like a lot of users take advantage of, or is it the kind of thing where it's like not too many people are kind of using it quite yet, or like because I imagine it's more than just kind of listing your token and then whatnot. Because I mean, obviously, as you said, you got to provide liquidity, and I'm sure whoever kind of makes the thing also wants to market it a little bit.
Right,
What has the
right.
process been around that recently?
Yeah,
Listening.
so I'd say we are seeing kind of adoption across both, general users like your kind of retail audience who are looking for different ways to generate yield, but also with like market makers, liquidity providers, and even other projects, right? So I think other projects are incentivized to kind of get their token pair listed because it drives excitement and it drives activity within their community. Um, so one of the things is right now, I don't think we have the largest kind of like retail liquidity providers, but that's more of a function of where we are as a product. So we see our current product that's live on the market, SynFutures V1, as almost like a MVP, right? Like a minimally viable product where it proves out our concept from a very basic level, but we haven't built out all of the user experience and tools to really encourage people to provide that liquidity. So you really have to like want to pursue that because it's not super intuitive as it is now. Now, our V2 is in testnet, and when it does reach when we do deploy it on mainnet, it's going to be a completely different experience in the sense that we're really emphasizing both the trader experience and the liquidity provider experience. So that's when we expect more people, both retail users and market makers, to come on the platform and provide liquidity. I mean, we've seen the same thing when Uniswap V3 launched. I think at the very beginning, it was probably more the projects themselves who were providing liquidity to their tokens, or some of like the people who are in it for like the yield farming aspect of it, right? But over time, I think normal users, average retail users, started gravitating toward like the whole liquidity pool experience. So I think we're going to see like a similar adoption curve, especially as we roll out V2.
Great, and I'm definitely going to ask you about V2 very soon. So no worries. We're going to be talking about that too.
Awesome,
Um,
awesome.
is there a so then okay? So obviously, you guys have your V1 product already live. You mentioned V2's on testnet. How has building on Arbitrum, would you say, like helped the protocol from like the team standpoint, as well as maybe like from what you've heard from the community?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I think from day one, we've always wanted to have multi-chain support, right? Because it's important to serve users not on just a single chain, but across anywhere they are, right? Doesn't matter if they're on Ethereum, Arbitrum, Solana, etc. So the reality with derivatives trading and just crypto trading in general, our fees can be extremely prohibitive. So we initially deployed on Ethereum mainnet, but especially last year when fees were kind of through the roof, it's extremely prohibitive for like the average retail trader to make trades when they're paying hefty fees. And so we were always looking for different kind of scaling solutions, layer twos, and different alternatives to be able to provide our experience in a much simpler, cost efficient, and quicker way. And so I think Arbitrum has provided that outlet for us, right? So when we think about prioritizing different chains, I would say Arbitrum is pretty high up on the list. I mean, you guys have gotten a ton of traction on both the developer and like the retail user side. I know you guys were doing the Odyssey program, which is extremely exciting. And so both from a tech perspective, meaning like you guys bring the kind of scalability, the cost, the efficiency, et cetera, to us. But you guys also have this like very vibrant ecosystem of users and developers. And so I think Arbitrum was like a no-brainer when we were looking for other chains to deploy on. And we're super bullish on like the future of what our Arbitrum community may look like as we expand our platform.
100%. And like I definitely I definitely feel like that the whole like kind of cross-chain, multi-chain kind of thesis has definitely been the top of mind for a lot of projects for like like a little while now. And like I totally get it. I mean, again, this is me saying that working on Arbitrum. It's going to be a multi-chain future, a cross-chain future. But I truly think that kind of like trying. In my opinion, and again, I would definitely love yours. I love the idea of like trying to like build like vertically, and really making your presence known on whether it be a specific chain or two, and like kind of focus on that will always make a lot more sense to me than like kind of deploying on every chain, like literally like it's like 30, 40 plus chains because there's a lot of chains out there, and then kind of trying to do like maybe operate from there. Like do you see that maybe as like I love your opinion on that, honestly. I mean, like, does it make more sense to kind of focus on like, maybe like a small couple of chains versus just deploying on every one and then kind of trying to do things from there? Or
Yeah,
what are
so
your thoughts on
so I
that?
completely agree with you. I think there are dozens and dozens of chains out there, and I see new chains launching every day. I mean, the reality is most of these chains, of the dozens of chains out there, there are only a handful that have true adoption, right? So it actually makes the decision a lot easier for us. I mean, other factors, just advice for other developers considering Arbitrum. One of the other factors is just the speed of deployment on Arbitrum. I think because you guys use optimistic rollups, it's a much simpler experience to deploy than some of the more complex kind of mechanisms that are out there. Um, and then in terms of like just the strategic growth, right? So I do think it's more important to build a strong community within a smaller set of ecosystems than trying to go too wide everywhere, right? Like so ultimately, like Arbitrum, you guys are essentially an infrastructure provider for us, but we also view you guys as like a very strategic partner. We work closely with the Arbitrum Arbitrum team on different campaigns. We've received a lot of support from you guys. And so we want to double down on chains like yours so that we can grow together, right? I know you guys are kind of in that growth stage right now. And so I see a lot of synergy as we ourselves as a protocol are in this similar growth phase.
No, totally. I 100% agree. And I think part of what I think, I guess me as a community manager, like likes about kind of like the position that I guess Arbitrum is in right now, along with the projects that we of course partner with like yourself, is that like we're all like really like how do you say kind of like bending the envelope here, like we're all like really creating cutting edge technology, so it's really cool to kind of collaborate and synergize around that and actually have a community grow from it. So it's I don't know, from that perspective, it's always a no brainer for me. It's like whenever I talk to people about Arbitrum and whatnot, it's not even a pitch at this point; it's a conversation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I would love to though, talking about cutting edge tech, dive a little bit more actually into one of your products. So it's funny when I was actually looking on SynFutures like on the website and whatnot, and kind of doing my research before this call, I noticed that you guys are also able to you also have products for NFTs. Can you kind of go a little bit more into that and maybe like which chain are currently supported for that and whatnot?
Yeah, sure. So we're launching a product called SynFutures, which is a simplified, kind of very consumer-friendly app that lets you take, leverage positions on your favorite NFT collection. So could be Bored Apes, could be Mutants, could be, World of Women, CryptoPunks, etc. Right. So I do have to clarify that we don't have that product live yet. It will be part of our like V2 roadmap, right? So we'll first ship our V2 trading platform, and then over the pursuing months, we're gonna roll out this NFT futures product. That one of the things that determine the thinking behind NFT futures is we know that the NFT audience is quite different from the derivatives trading audience, right? Derivatives can feel a bit, complex. And so we knew that if we were going to target like these really passionate NFT collectors, allowing them to create arbitrage opportunities or hedge risk or whatever it is, we knew we had to simplify the experience. So we designed it in a way that it's almost like, if you think about Tinder, right? Like this gamified Tinder experience where all you have to do is like or dislike on a specific NFT collection to take like a, to short or long. We're able to do this because we pull Oracle data from many different partners like NFTX, Fractional.art, etc. And what we're able to do is create these like futures markets using tokenized NFTs. So it's something that's on our roadmap, and it's something that we're really excited about. And we've gotten a ton of like amazing feedback from the community and excitement around this. But I would say this is a little later in the roadmap, maybe Q4 of this year.
No, it's very exciting, and I was actually about to ask, like about NFTX and fractional and whatnot, and I guess my question is, how much does I guess how liquid do you need an NFT to be for you guys to actually think about even opening one of these products for a specific collection? Or
Yeah,
I
that's a
mean,
good question. I
uh,
mean,
yeah.
so when creating futures market, liquidity is probably the most important factor. I mean, the challenge with NFTs in general is that even when you look at like the top 10 largest collections on, let's say Ethereum, the liquidity is still limited, right? It's just the nature of the end product, which is the NFTs. Like JPEGs historically just had not had that much liquidity. I think introducing like a derivatives markets around that will help increase it over time, but it's not like a chicken or or egg problem, right? I think it's something that happens side by side. Um, what we really think about is the feedback we get from the NFT community in general is that they always wish there was a way to either hedge the downside risk or create like these leverage opportunities in NFTs that's not possible right now. And so we're working toward creating a solution for that. But the byproduct of that is creating these like more complex markets around NFTs is going to help bring in more liquidity to the market in the form of like market makers, right? Like as of now, when these big institutions come into NFTs, really like the most they typically do is they'll make, a pretty vast purchase of a specific collection, and then they just, but it's essentially a buy and hold strategy. I think if we give both retail and institutional users more options in the way they speculate within these markets, then it creates a more robust market over time.
I totally agreed. It's like, and it's like you said, that kind of chicken and egg thing. It's not really so much of that. It's more of everyone kind of pulling together and developing this infrastructure kind of at the same time. I totally agree. And this is the only industry I feel like that's like that, by the way, crypto, which is really
Yeah,
really cool.
exactly.
Can you kind of maybe talk more about then some more of the recent products you guys have released, or any developments kind of coming out of SynFutures before we get into any future stuff slash V2?
Yeah. So maybe just a quick overview on V1. Like I mentioned, V1 is really like a MVP product for us, meaning it's not fully built out. I mean, it's fully functional. People have been trading on our platform. In the we launched last October, and our V1 has already done 9 billion in trading volume. We have like 65,000 unique wallets interact with our platform. And so we're getting a ton of traction. So I think maybe calling it an MVP, maybe downplaying kind of where we are as a product. But when I say MVP, it's because the feature set that we offer currently isn't everything that we would like to offer our users, right? So to give an example, we offer futures, but as of now, they're only traditional futures, which means they have set expiry dates, whether it be weekly, biweekly, monthly, etc. And so the user has to kind of wait until that period to settle out the position, right? With V2, which is currently live in testnet right now, we've introduced perpetual futures, which means these are similar to traditional futures, but they have no expiry date. So a user could, come in and out of positions whenever they'd like, right? So I think this is a huge, huge addition for us, because if you look at the crypto derivative space, perpetuals are by far the most popular derivatives contract, right? So, to answer your question about where we are now with recent developments, so we have our V2 launched on testnet right now. So any user can go on, try the new platform. There's a completely overhauled, UI and UX. We have this perpetual trading experience available right now. And then, so this was launched maybe about like 2 months ago, maybe a month and a half or 2 months ago. Just last week or so, we launched V2.1, and in V2.1, we made some not only cosmetic updates, but also some fundamental updates. So on the cosmetic side, we've added like a light dark mode, which I know in crypto, people just love dark mode. And so we want to give users the options to trade like in a way that's most appealing and comfortable for them, right? And I think the reason dark mode is interesting is, I've talked to a couple of people about it, and the reality is like a lot of these like crypto traders, they happen to be like night owls, right? So they're trading into the late nights, late hours of the night. And so I think it becomes easier on the eye. I mean, some people just prefer it from an aesthetic perspective. We also, as part of 2.1, testnet 2.1, we also introduced coin margin futures, which means, we have a handful of like stable coins and major crypto that you could use as margin in V1. But in V2, we're going to allow people to use other kind of like native tokens as your margin token. So it's all about giving the user a lot more flexibility and like a lot more choice in the way they trade. And then finally, we've added some additional oracles. So, as an exchange, what we do is we integrate with Chainlink, Uniswap, SushiSwap, and, other kind of sources of real-time price data, and we pull that in to ensure that our pricing is accurate when when users trade. And so with V2.1, I know this is more on the back end, so maybe not super exciting, but because we offer like other Oracle options, I think we have like a much more accurate pricing system in V2.1. And so we're in V2.1 right now. We'll be in this phase maybe for the next month or so. And then we'll slowly start rolling out like closed alpha, which means we'll be on mainnet, but it'll be like a token gated access to the platform. Token gated just meaning like we'll use an NFT to like kind of allow list the user.
Awesome. Yeah, no, and honestly, I mean, for what it's worth, like some of the most important changes at the end of the day are always going to be in the back end. It's like, it's like it's like that saying I love to use personally. It's like you always want to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, which I think is what crypto really like building should be kind of based around. Where it's like like decentralization, permissionlessness is really really important, and I feel like generally like general consumers don't seem to care about it too much. A lot of them are kind of just coming into the space now, probably, and they probably don't see that side of crypto, like the side that maybe you and I saw when we first got in. But it's really important, obviously, as we're seeing now with a lot of these different projects or companies or whatever it is, kind of blowing up because of this lack of decentralization, right? So I think that's very important. Also, that the night mode, dark mode, huge, very big.
Innovation.
Yeah, no, it's very important. Okay, so I know that's awesome. And you mentioned testnet mainnet. Should I assume that's Rinkeby testnet and then Ethereum mainnet, or is Arbitrum included in that mainnet deployment as well when it first launches, or what's the
Yeah,
timeline on that?
so I think in the first version of closed alpha, we may just do it on. You know what? I'm not 100% sure. So we still have to flesh out that strategy. But Arbitrum will definitely be among like the first chains that we deploy on. And we've been. I don't know if you know, but we ran like an Arbitrum specific NFT campaign maybe like 2 months ago, and so we already have
Yes.
this like list of it. Yeah, we did a trading campaign, and the whole purpose of it was as part of the trading campaign, anyone who received these NFTs are now going to have first access to our V2 closed alpha, and we'll run another campaign to give like other people here in the audience right now and like new Arbitrum users an opportunity to be part of this closed alpha program. So we'll announce that separately, in the coming weeks. But yeah, Arbitrum is for sure when we go into closed alpha one of the top priorities for us.
It's funny because I literally remember for a while actually, because something I do sometimes is just like search up Arbitrum on the Twitter search bar, and literally all I saw was like SynFutures related stuff. I think it was probably that
Oh,
campaign.
that's awesome.
So you definitely made a mark there. Um, no, that's great to hear. I mean, I think the I don't know it's very nice to see like projects making this a priority. Obviously, and, specifically you guys, like and the whole back end stuff, making sure that everything is truly crypto native, centralized, permissionless, etc. Um, I do have a question though, generally for you. What do you think? In your opinion, is the future of on-chain derivatives trading? And you can. This is a broad question, so you can go any direction with it you want. But yeah, the future of on-chain derivatives trading.
Yeah, I
What do
mean,
you see
that's
that
an
as?
interesting question because it's something, obviously we're a fully on-chain derivatives platform. And so it's something that like we live and breathe every day. One of the things that we realize is there's still a lot of opportunity for on-chain derivatives. If you look at the traditional financial markets, right, the spot market is, well, so the derivatives market is typically many multiples larger than the spot market in terms of activity, right? We see a similar trend when you go into like centralized crypto exchanges. So if you look at like Binance, FTX, and all these other guys, their derivatives counterparts are much larger than their spot counterparts. So, it could be anywhere from 3 to 5x. Their derivatives volume could be anywhere from 3 to 5x their spot volume. And so this is a very like familiar kind of market mechanics that you see carry over from traditional finance. But in decentralized derivatives, we don't see that just yet. I mean, there are a number of reasons for that. But before I get into that, currently the spot market in decentralized exchanges are still larger than your decentralized counterparts. And so what I'm saying is like Uniswap, SushiSwap, Trader Joe's, and all these other kind of centralized exchanges still make up a higher well, make up more volume than all of the decentralized derivatives platforms combined, including ours. And so I think there's like a big opportunity because that's not a typical market dynamic. And so I think as more users kind of get more advanced into the crypto space, as more users kind of like move from spot into derivatives, so like Uniswap traders, Sushi Swap traders, they start exploring other ways to kind of create opportunities for profit. They'll naturally seek decentralized solutions because, like I mentioned, there are some inherent benefits of being decentralized, right? We're non-custodial, we're permissionless, it's we also support, at least for us in futures, we're able to support a much wider range of assets. Just to give you an example, some exchanges might offer 30 different trading pairs on the derivatives side. Since launch, we've had over 200 pairs listed by our community members. And so I think people will naturally gravitate toward decentralized derivatives and on-chain derivatives because it offers them an opportunity to explore like these long tail assets that you might not find anywhere else. I think that's the first part of on-chain derivatives. The current challenge, though, is I would say one of the major challenges is user experience. And so it's much easier today to trade on a centralized exchange, both in terms of the user experience and like the liquidity available on the platform. But that's just a function of where we are as an industry, right? So I think we're still early. The decentralized derivative space is still early. I mean, there are some larger problems on the UX side that aren't specific to derivatives. So to give an example, when I walk my friends through trading on SynFutures, it's like a 5-step process, not because of our platform, but just because of the way blockchain is designed right now, right? So you have to go to a centralized exchange, KYC, then you create like a decentralized wallet, like a MetaMask, then you transfer your assets, and then from there you have to give it permission to interact with different contracts and so forth. So I think for the average user, it's a little cumbersome. We are working on longer term some solutions that can help simplify these processes, but it's still an existing barrier, not just for derivatives, but for the overall DeFi ecosystem. And then the other major challenge with I think on-chain derivatives is just the liquidity challenge. So liquidity is the most important factor when you're creating these kind of markets. Again, because we're still somewhat nascent, like it's not fully there yet. And so I think over time we'll get like a snowball effect, and we'll get more liquidity, and platforms like ours will continue to innovate on the user experience to make it a simpler, more intuitive trading experience. But that's all to say, I think we're still early. We have some problems to solve as an industry, and SynFutures, we're always working toward like enhancing or pushing the envelope on what we can do with decentralized derivatives.
I'd love to pick your brain a little more actually on that kind of whole user flow for even just like onboarding, for example, when you talk to people and try to onboard them to SynFutures. Because I agree with you. It's like it's a multi-step process. You got to get an exchange, a wallet, like you said, permissions, etc. You have to get the funds in the first place. But like, let me ask you this: like, how do you think that like that gap, or I guess that entire flow, can be bridged without sacrificing the whole idea of decentralization? Because in a way, it's like it's long and complex, which definitely is a big barrier for people. But it's also like I'd almost argue it's maybe it's a little safer than like like having like one entity that you can do everything through. I'm not sure. I mean, I would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. So that I guess that is one of the core value propositions of kind of decentralization, right? Is this like idea that no single entity controls like everything, right? And but the downside to that, like we just talked about, is the user experience. I think there are ways to solve this with like almost like middle layers, right? Like so you create these kind of like APIs or interfaces that kind of aggregate some of the steps for you on your behalf in a completely decentralized manner. And then the other ways to kind of start solving that is I think all protocols where they can should look for ways to kind of simplify the step, or even if it's just one small step, like, we talked about like a 5-step process to start trading on like a DeFi protocol. If we're able to shrink that even by one, it has a significant impact, right? So one of the ways that we do it is we look at it even from like a product perspective, where typically if you're providing liquidity to a trading pair, you're forced to kind of provide liquidity with both tokens, right, in that pair. What we've done is we've designed our system so that users can provide liquidity with single token, right? So we call it single token liquidity. And I know it doesn't sound like, completely groundbreaking, but I think from the perspective of like the average user experience, being able to have them list a pair just using a single asset without getting that two asset kind of without holding both assets and putting them both up makes it just a little bit simpler, and over time we'll continue to kind of add to these types of like efficiencies. But yeah, I think there are a couple different ways projects could approach it, but again, I still think that overall, like, it's still a challenging process, and it's not something that necessarily I think should go away. Like you mentioned, there are benefits to being decentralized in this manner, taking all of these steps, but we do have to look to simplify where we can if we're going to onboard the next like billion users.
Yeah, totally agreed. And I think obviously one of the biggest one of the biggest things that's going to help us do that is going to be education, right? And
Yeah,
I noticed
absolutely.
when Yeah, and I noticed when looking through like the SynFutures website that you guys have a ton of different types of education and like resources, stuff that's available to the people to read. I'm like, how do you guys approach that currently?
Yeah. Okay. So it's great that you came across SynFutures Academy. So we call it Syn Academy, and the goal is we want to kind of help onboard new users, both like novice users, meaning they're new to crypto. They don't know how to use a MetaMask wallet. They don't know what like a layer two is, and they want to learn more. And this is more like, I wouldn't consider it like user acquisition, right? We're just trying to inform the community and get more people excited about blockchain, regardless of whether they use our platform or not. The other type of content is for like the slightly more like veteran crypto users. So like there are a lot of people in the crypto space, especially brought in by like NFTs, who are very familiar with the concept of MetaMask and decentralized wallets, and also decentralized spot exchanges like Uniswap. They've been on, unfortunately, some lending protocols or all these other kind of like DeFi protocols, but they may not know how to trade derivatives. Again, it can feel a little intimidating if you're new to the space, but it doesn't have to be, right? So we want to create a hub where we teach people the basics of derivatives trading, some of the terminology that's commonly used, and like the mechanics of it, right? So what is liquidity? Like what is providing liquidity? What is impermanent loss, right? The risk of impermanent loss and things like that to get them more familiar. Ultimately, though, our Syn Academy as it stands today, we consider like a beta product, right? So we just started coming up with these like content ideas, and the reality is right now there's no rhyme or reason for the way we list it. But as we speak, we have a developer team and a design team working on completely revamping Syn Academy to be much more course-like, right? Ultimately, we want to be able to offer users kind of like a Udemy or like a Khan Academy or that style of course where there's a guided kind of journey for new users getting into crypto, but also for people who are now exploring derivatives trading. And again, like some of it is because we'd love to attract new users. We'd love to, show people the way our platform works. But I think more importantly, it's going to help us get more people in the space. So again, this is a completely free resource for people. If they come and learn just out of curiosity, that's great. If they go take this knowledge and go trade somewhere else, that's fine with us too. Now, if they come and stay on our platform and they trade, that would be, the ideal scenario. But again, it's not about just us. It's about like broadening like this derivatives market for a growing base of crypto users.
I totally agree, and I think to me it's like one of those things where it's like it's exactly like you said, where it's if the whole point is to obviously educate the broader market as a whole, and if the byproduct of that is people obviously trading on SynFutures, that's awesome, and hopeful for sure. Um, but I mean, I think it would make sense. I mean, I've come across many courses myself, and just like articles and blogs and whatnot. And you'll always notice that like the product, the company writing it, and I think it truly shows like your mission. I think as a product that you guys take time to actually write these things for the betterment of the crypto public, or in the public generally, I should say, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just, you got to do more than just written content, right? So we're now exploring, these micro videos, even whiteboard animations, just because I'm personally a fan of these like YouTube channels that explain complex topics with like these like animated graphics. And then even like making it a bit more interactive. So, everyone learns in different ways. And I think articles are a great starting point. But I think to engage people and to get them excited about a content, you need to give them some engagement and some interactive components. So, we're going to break these up into smaller courses where, you might read a little bit, you might watch a video or two, and then there might be like a quiz component, right? Like, so after every lesson, you take a little bit of a quiz, and then, we'll also incentivize people. We'll reward them with like NFTs and different badges that they can have for completing the course. And again, it's not so much like it's because we want them to use SynFutures. It's because the more people are informed and the more people are educated about this space as a whole, I think it pushes the entire industry forward.
Sorry, I think I just cut off for a second. But no, again, I totally hear you on that, for sure. I think before we jump to questions from the audience, we think maybe had maybe one or two over there in the chat. I already saw. Um, I know we spoke a little bit about V2 already, and some of the features. But is there anything else on the roadmap you want to cover before we jump into questions?
Yeah, we do have a ton in the roadmap. I mean, some are closer than others, but I think from running you through some of like the core items that are coming up. I mentioned SynFutures, which is our derivatives trading product for NFTs that's in a completely consumerized user experience. We also have cross-chain features on our roadmap, which means our Oracle data will support assets across multiple chains. I mean, the ultimate goal is that the product release is going to give traders the ability to trade popular trending assets anywhere, no matter which chain, right? So not only any asset, but any chain. We're also going to roll out shared margin. So right now, your margin is based on your trading position, but this can be a little cumbersome. Like we talked about, like simplifying the user experience and condensing as many steps as possible, and just giving the user less to worry about in terms of like managing their positions, right? So we're going to have shared margins across different positions. We're looking at further multi-chain expansion. We've always had a multi-chain mindset to begin with. And, we're looking at, so right now we're on EVM compatible chains. I think in the longer term, we do want to explore like some of the non-EVM chains. We're also looking at different solutions like other cross-chain scaling solutions. And so the ultimate goal is just allow anyone to trade anything on any network. And finally, we do have a new synthetic AMM model in the works. It's pretty exciting. I don't think I'll go into it too far right now because it gets a bit technical, but we're looking to combine like the benefits and like the user experience of a centralized exchange with the benefits of like the decentralized approach. And so, we'll still completely remain decentralized. It's just bringing in like the best parts of both worlds.
Awesome. Yeah. No. I mean, again, it's all about bringing more more product and more innovation to the people. So I totally hear you on that.
Exactly.
So I think we can move to some of the community questions right now. Let me see. I know a couple people are raising their hand in the chat. Let me run by the AMA chat first. Some of the written stuff. So Safar over here earlier asked, do you guys have any plans for option contract trades? I'm not sure exactly what that means, but maybe you
Yeah.
could.
So, yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people ask us that actually, and I think there are some really great options trading platforms out there already. It's something that we think about when we think about the overall derivatives ecosystem. But at the moment, I think our focus is going to be on rolling out perpetuals on mainnet, and then some of the stuff we already talked about, which is like the cross margin, the coin margin futures, because before we explore like a new derivatives product category, we want to make sure what we have today, which is traditional futures and soon perpetual futures, are optimized and offer users like the best experience they can find from a decentralized platform.
Awesome. Sahar, I hope you have answered your question, my friend. We had a question from SPK over here. It's a little bit of a broad one. Do you have a plan to get any new partners? I assume. I guess maybe a better question is, you guys planning on collaborating with any other projects?
Oh, absolutely. So, I think in this type of market too, and as we look into rolling out V2 on mainnet, we're starting to ramp up some of our both product and community driven partnerships. So, I mentioned earlier, we consider like an Arbitrum a partner from like an ecosystem perspective, but we're always looking for other types of partnerships. Like, we work with spot dexes on leveraging their, price data through oracles to ensure that like our platform has the most accurate pricing. We're looking to partner with projects who are providing liquidity to our platform. So to give an example, we work closely with projects like Frax, who provide liquidity to some of their stablecoin pairs on SynFutures. And then I think moving forward, like even with the release of coin margin futures, which is really, this means any project can take their native token, bring it over to SynFutures, and allow users to use it as their margin token, right? And I think that's super important because as an ecosystem, doesn't matter what type of project you are, whether you're a layer one, layer two, DeFi protocol, or whatever it is, at the end of the day, you want your users to stay within your asset ecosystem, meaning if they're holding your tokens, you don't necessarily want them to swap out into other tokens just so they can make some trades, right? So I think the projects we've talked to are excited about that. It keeps like their users within their asset while still giving them plenty of opportunity to trade and create like new opportunities. And then on the marketing side, we're looking to partner with all types of protocols who have similar values, similar value propositions, and like a similar vision for what a decentralized future would look like to collaborate with our communities. Again, like I think the really exciting part about crypto is people aren't building against each other, right? Like I think the industry's still small enough where everyone's kind of building side by side. It's not a zero sum game because there are a lot of users still yet to enter the market, and so we're looking for like these strategic partnerships where we kind of help each other grow, and that could be on the product side or even on the community side.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that. I think someone said that you can't hear me. Hopefully they can. I mean, Mark, it seems like you can hear me. So
Yeah, I can hear you.
okay, good. um, oh yes, I hope that answered your question, SPK. Um, I think Bless Lab also asked about NFT futures. I think someone in the chat actually already linked them to a resource for that. Actually, so I'm not
Although
sure.
there is something maybe I could expand on NFTs,
Please.
because aside from NFT futures, we do leverage NFTs in a different way within our community. So we're constantly running these like community competitions, trading campaigns. We did one with Arbitrum, and the goal of these NFTs, right, is to incentivize the community in a non-traditional way. Meaning, like, yes, we could do like USDC incentives, but we really want people to become vested in what we're building, and so we have these NFT rewards that we issue people, and they have some utility in the sense that, they'll be eligible for like allow list access to future product updates. With the Arbitrum NFT holders, they'll be able to access our closed alpha. They'll be the first wave to access our closed alpha and really like dive into our platform. The other way we use NFTs is SynFutures doesn't currently have a token right now, but I think the nature of decentralization is you want the community to help govern what you're doing as a protocol. And so we use these NFTs as a way to kind of vote on different proposals. So to give an example, months ago, we did like a community proposal where people voted on which chains they would like to see us on next. And we're going to continue doing that because we want people, again, vested and engaged within our community. It helps us build a better product for our users. But we'd like to think we also have an incentive system built out where these NFTs will be able to use for their benefit in the future. Like there are some things that I can't disclose yet, but I will say like these NFTs are going to be the framework for a lot of the opportunities that we're going to roll out over the coming months for early users.
I'm very surprised that we haven't had like a win token yet. Put it in the chat.
Oh, we get that all the time, but I think you got to do it in the right way. And again, our focus right now is the product. So these NFTs are like part of the way there, and they'll have special benefits in the future, which is maybe a little bit of alpha for the audience. But I think we'd love to see more people engaged, and we're running new NFT campaigns by the week, so super excited about that.
Awesome, awesome. I think we can maybe start to bring some people up from the audience then. Let me see. I know some people have actually been waiting for a little while, so I'm not sure if they're still going to be there. Here, let me just bring up Malay over here. And by the way, if any of these questions are related to the Odyssey, I may have to bring you back down because we want to keep it related to SynFutures. Want to keep it on SynFutures. I think I just tried to bring in this guy on. Let me see if he comes. Malay. Just in case I forgot to bring someone else up. Bring someone else on as well. Let me see. Let's give him a moment or two. I feel like whenever I invite them on, they leave right away. Well, what's going on here? I'm like, what's going on? No need to be afraid, okay? Just there's an alien and a monkey talking about derivatives.
That's right.
Let's see here. I guess while we're waiting for one of these guys to come on, there was another question I saw here. I'm not sure if it's too relevant, but MOTXXA asks, will there be any grants program for developers? I'm not sure if that can apply to some futures per se, but
It could potentially apply. It's something that we've definitely thought about, and the reason is everything we've talked about so far has been our like B2C product, meaning like our user facing products. But we've built this amazing infrastructure for these derivatives trading, and we're looking at potentially like lending out this platform as an API for people who want to offer this to their users, right? So to give an example, a spot exchange, a spot dex could use our APIs to tap into our technology to seamlessly offer derivatives trading right within their user interface, right? So to their users, it's not a SynFutures product, it's their product, but they're leveraging our overall trading infrastructure. And so that's one way. I mean, we could do this with any kind of protocol. And so there is like a B2B aspect that we're exploring, and we'd love to like one day invite developers to leverage our product to build like some crazy ideas, right? Like, we're building a very specific product at the moment, but I know what the crypto space has shown me is developers can be very creative in the types of products they come up with. And so let us do the heavy lifting on like the infrastructure side, and you guys get creative on like the user experience, the interface, and even like the mechanics of how you offer it to users. And so it's not something we're like actively pushing right now, but I think in the coming future that could be a possibility where just like layer ones and layer twos, we provide grants for people to build using our technology.
that actually like reminds me of like at least like one of my favorite protocols. At least when I was doing a lot of stuff on Ethereum mainnet was Ribbon Finance, and I always found it cool how like they were using Open, which is like its own platform on its own as their backend, but you could still use Open on your own if you knew like kind of your way around like their platform.
Yeah.
So like I
Yeah,
can
it's
see
also
SynFutures I guess
similar.
being the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's also similar to Serum, right, on Solana. So Serum started off as like their own exchange, and then over time, what they realized was they have this like really robust, architecture for as an exchange, and so now all of the major dexes on Solana are built on top of Serum. So it's a two-pronged approach, and again, that's probably later in our roadmap. But in the sake of bringing more into people into the space, it would be much easier for us and the industry at large if we did it together at scale. And so that is one of the things that we are considering as we go forward.
Awesome. Yeah. Honestly, I didn't even know that thing about the serum and Solana. I actually had no idea. Um, okay, let's see. Let's see if we can bring on just one person here then who's requesting to speak. And then if not, we can probably wrap up there since we are hitting close to that hour mark. Um, something tells me they're not going to come up anyways. Uh, see, give me a second or two. Are they up here or did they disappear? Oh, yeah, I think they disappeared. Okay, that's fine. Well, for what it's worth, for anyone in the audience who does want to contribute to SynFutures, be part of the community, and join in any way, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I would say check us out on Twitter at SynFutures DeFi. That's SYN Futures DeFi. You'll be able to find all the relevant links to our Discord, our Telegram. Check out our site synfutures.com. And I would say Twitter and Discord are probably the primary channels for us to share new campaigns and things going forward. And we're always open to community feedback. So if anyone wants to reach out, they can DM me directly on Twitter at Mark Joon, Mark June Lee Lee. We're always looking for more feedback and advice on what we're building. So I'm really excited to see some of you guys here come into the SynFutures community. I urge everyone to try out our testnet V2. Again, you're using testnet tokens, so even if you're not too familiar with derivatives, you can play around with no risk whatsoever. And then, as I said, we're going to pump out more Academy content, so it'll be a good resource for those who are in this audience that are somewhat interested in derivatives but don't know where to start. So I would say expect that type of course-like materials to come out in the next 30 to 60 days.
Awesome. Yeah, and yeah, by the way, for anyone who did end up joining after the fact, should be posting just a recording of this later on, probably next week. But yeah, Mark, I really, really appreciate you guys from SynFutures joining us today. And we're excited to see what V2 brings.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.
All right. Take care.